welcome to the Eat Your Content podcast. I'm your host, Rich Herrera. This is your podcast for all things food and pop culture. Thanks for joining in. I am continuing my Top Chef episodic recap. We're on episode 4 here in North Carolina, and joining me as always, giving his professional insight and behind the scenes look into how Top Chef is and how it's filmed and what these chefs are going through. My guest co-host, Chef Corwin Hemming. Chef, thanks for coming back on.
Rich, we ready to do it this week again? Week 4, big week. I need to come
We
back.
are we are in week 4. We got a lot to talk about. Last Chance
Mhm.
Kitchen premiered after this episode. We have a very Southern challenge, which I really loved. I felt North Carolina was really represented well. Not just really North Carolina, but the American South in
Mhm.
general, I think was represented really well in this episode. A Quickfire that I thought was pretty fun. A lot going on. We had Tristan guest judging, so a really great showing, Tristan, from your season. What did you think just overall of this episode, especially after the disastrous one from last week, where everybody was just kind of flailing around? I felt like this was an improvement. People were uh, had a lot of self reflection there at the beginning, but overall, what did you think?
I think that all the chefs are, now that people are starting to get knocked out, they're realizing like you got to show up. Like there's no more room for error. Everybody's kind of, not wanting to face the music, even though somebody is going home. So everybody's kind of buckling in, but I'm eager to talk about what happened on this episode because there was a couple people who stepped up that we haven't seen step up yet. And there was a couple people who've been on the top that kind of struggled. So a lot to unpack here.
Yeah, there was a lot of shifting. I would think in the quote unquote power rankings of our draft picks.
Hmm.
A lot of people that have been kind of settling into the middle really stepped up this week. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Like I said, a lot of introspection at the beginning, a lot of imposter syndrome going on, especially from Sherry and her confessional. I think after having a rough week like last week, can you kind of see where these chefs are coming from? Like, gosh, I know I'm a good cook. What happened?
Hmm. I think overall, it's just they've got to learn how to cook to the challenge. That was apparent last challenge that nobody was dying anything the right way, or they weren't really leaning into the challenge as much as you should. Um, and so I think some of the everybody's talented. That's there. That's apparent, but it's some people are just getting it. So I think it's clear who really did their research and then who's a fan of Top Chef and who's been watching for multiple seasons and is coming with ideas that stick to what you're supposed to do when you're in the Top Chef kitchen. So overall, I think Sherry definitely stepped up. She cooked a fantastic looking dish, potatoes in multiple different ways. And so yeah, I'm eager to see what she does. I drafted her, so I need her to step up. You know what I mean? I need some points on the board. So I was glad to see her just start cooking well because we did talk about that a couple episodes. I'm eager to see her step up. I'm eager to see Anthony step up. So definitely.
Yeah, so let's get right into the quick fire. As I said, Tristan from season 22, your season, was the guest judge. So it was good to see him again. He was also on my pod as a guest, episode 90. If you are interested in listening to that interview, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's a little thing floating around. Just click on that and you'll be able to see it. But the challenge was in honor of North Carolina's kind of first in flight moniker in the Wright brothers' home state of North Carolina. In teams of 3, they're going to create a food flight, like the play on words there, based on Josh Seller's collection of wine. So a 3 flight course to pair with 1 red, 1 white, and 1 rosé wine. And the dishes need to be cohesive but distinctly different. So the example given by Tristan was you can have a flight of sliders with different proteins. So the challenge was laid out, an example was given, and off to the races they went. So they divided into 4 teams. We have the green team, red team, blue team, and the cream team. So the
Mhm.
green team was Oscar, Brittany, and Brandon. The red team was Jonathan, Duyen, and Anthony. The blue team was Justin, Jennifer, and Seeger. And the cream team was Rhoda, Sherry, and Lawrence. Let's talk about their flights. The green team did a seafood flight. Oscar did an arepa with Parmesan, creme fraiche, and caviar. Brittany did a seared scallop with plum sauce, and Brandon did a sourdough crusted grouper with dried fruits and nuts. Some of the comments made were this was just a very generic topic of seafood, and the dishes didn't really they weren't cohesive. They were supposed to be the same thing but distinctly different. Did you agree with that judgment from Tristan, or do you think, hey, a seafood flight is a seafood flight?
You never know what the judges are looking for. Anthony knows Tristan, for example, so he was pretty critical. But in this seafood flight, it's like, what do the judges love? What's going to wow them? It was kind of an awkward challenge. You're in another team challenge. Yep, somebody gets a different type of wine. So what are we going for here cohesively? Because it is a team challenge, but it's not really. But somebody's dish has to stand out. I don't know. It's hard to tell because sometimes you have a good cook. You put up a dish, and you're like everything was seasoned perfectly sauce, and then you're not at the top, or the judges have critiques, and you're like, oh well, that's not how I thought this was going to go. So it's just really luck of the draw. I think some of the teams that get certain ingredients and certain challenges automatically have an upper hand, like depending on where you pick, especially when it's like these mystery baskets and a lot of things are out of your control. So it's tough, man. I was watching it. I'm like, this would have been a hard one. How do we make this work cohesively as a team of three? I don't know.
Yeah, it was tough. I didn't catch it when he said, it was just a generic seafood flight and you had three completely different dishes that didn't really match up together. Because I look at the
Mhm,
red team, who was one of the successful ones, and they decided to do a tome cheese flight. One
mhm,
Jonathan did a grilled cheese to pair with a rosé. Duyen did roasted and fried sunchokes with a tome cheese sauce to pair with their Chardonnay, and Anthony did a mushroom toast with seared ribeye and tome soubise to pair with the
mhm,
merlot. Those are kind of three different dishes, and the only common denominator through there was that there was some tome cheese on it. So
mhm.
I don't know. I couldn't reconcile in my brain why the seafood flight was too different, whereas the tome cheese flight was good. I don't know. You're a pro chef. What do you think was
Mhm.
happening there?
I think that they, as a team, collectively stuck to their ideas a little bit better. They used the cheese, obviously, which is going to pair well with wine, but they also went in their own directions. They weren't scared to like make something that they wanted to eat and pair, and I think that that's why they had a little bit more success here.
Yeah. The blue team also had a pretty good showing. They did an egg flight. So Justin with the
Hmm.
rosé wine did a braised artichoke, poached quail egg, and rosé mayo. Jennifer with the Cabernet Sauvignon did a soft scrambled egg with roasted grape verjus and croutons, and Seeger did a Pinot Grigio paired with poached peaches with Sauvignon.
Hmm.
So egg throughout the whole thing. I thought the blue team looked really good. The
Hmm.
poached peaches, I liked that. Seeger went kind of in a dessert direction, so
Hmm.
he stood out and was different from everybody else. What did you think of the blue team there?
That's the 100%, which exactly what you just said. You have to find ways to stand out. Doing desserts is hard in Top Chef Kitchen. Like you gotta, somebody always steps up to the plate and does it out the gate, and then like kind of does it better. But it's in everybody's thinking savory. We're all savory chefs. So Seeger, I think, obviously is heating up. He's starting to cook with intention that is going to get him noticed in the Top Chef Kitchen instead of struggling. Poached peaches and wine go really well together, and so like doing something more on the dessert side, making a sabayon. He's still being creative. I need him to also step up. This is my guy. He's my first round pick. This is my Michael Jordan here. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think the blue team looked really well in this challenge.
Yeah, Seeger had a really good episode. We'll talk about that when we talk about the points
Mhm,
later on here. But he had a really good night overall.
mhm,
The cream team did a mochi flight. So Rhoda with the Sauvignon Blanc did a sautéed mushroom mochi. Sherry with the rosé did a potato and batarga mochi with creme fraiche, and Lawrence with the Merlot did a lamb, cherry, and parsley mochi. Conceptually, I like the idea of the mochi flight. I thought that made a lot of sense, but they decided to deep fry the mochi, which made it dense. And they
mhm,
were rushing because it takes time to make a mochi dough, and they did not have that time. The deep frying, I think, was a big mistake. It did not cook all the way through. It was dense and turned what was a good idea and could have had a good execution, just didn't. And I think, was it strictly time based, because you only got 30 minutes to make a mochi dough, and one person was making all the mochi dough. So what do you
mhm.
think went wrong here?
The idea. Just let's start with the idea. Mochi wine is trying to be too creative in 30 minutes. Dough is hard in 30 minutes. Like my season, we saw that when we did the patty episode, and they had to give us time to like rest our dough just because it's like, well, nobody wants to eat bad dough. So I think just conceptually they went in a different direction. They were trying to be overly creative. Whereas I think your quick fire should be something that's like you execute very fast, very well. Like stick to that. Something well, stick to the challenge, use the ingredients at hand. Don't try to go crazy because you've only got 30 minutes or sometimes even less. So yeah, I think just conceptually it was hard. And then trying to deep fry mochi just with the dough you've never tested on deep frying, it just wasn't a good idea.
Just too ambitious for the challenge, too ambitious for the time limit, that sort of thing.
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the least successful teams, were the green team and the cream team. So green and
Hmm.
cream were the least successful. We talked about the green team already having they just didn't have a cohesive flight concept, and we talked about the cream team. When Kristen asked whose idea was it to do a mochi flight, you knew like my heart sank when I heard that because somebody had to sheepishly raise their hand and go, "Yeah, that was me." So when you hear questions like that on Top Chef, it doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad, but it is a very diabolical question. Like whenever I hear, "Did you mean to do that?" or "Whose idea was it to do this?" in a team challenge, those really make you rethink in an instant every decision you ever made in your life.
But it's too late because they know, like the judges know everything. Nothing's gonna hide, nothing's gonna get past them. Kristen's been there. She fought her way out of LCK. She knows everything about what Top Chef is supposed to be from both sides. So if they're asking you probing questions, it's because either you did something really great or it's just was like, what are we thinking here? Like, why did we do that? And so yeah, Kristen knows. And so she's gonna ask probing questions. I think when they ask you those questions in the moment, and you know you messed up, it's like, ah man, all right, now I gotta like go explain myself. But sometimes that's a good thing. Like you can talk your way kind of back out of a hole a little bit. You know, don't don't admit, don't admit because the judges don't know everything. Don't admit all your faults, but uh stand up to it. Like if they were like if I was there and I was the one who made the mochi and came up with the idea, I'd be like, it was me. We wanted to be ambitious. We wanted to go for it. We wanted to do something creative and different. I'd have stood on it, but just fell short this challenge.
Yeah, even in the elimination challenge, we'll talk about Brittany here in a second. But even
Mhm.
in the elimination challenge, when Brittany admitted, this is not what I wanted to do, Tristan whispered, "Don't say that."
Don't admit that. Yeah, it's tell the truth of like what happened to you because that will save you. Like just be like, look, I had mechanical failure. I That's what tanked me. Like blame it on the actual problem. Just don't be like, oh well, it didn't end up how I wanted. Well, clearly you had to use somebody else's mise en place. Like that's not what is gonna get you uneliminated, you know. And I know what that's like, you know, having equipment failure in the Top Chef kitchen. You're in these random kitchens that you've never been before. And it was a really small kitchen. Like I was watching this episode, like, why is everybody in the kitchen at the same time? It was like my first time. Why is everybody in the kitchen at the same time? This is such a small kitchen. Like, I don't know, but everybody's fighting for equipment. Sometimes you have an idea, you write a menu and you're like, oh, I want to use a Binchatan grill. And there's only two. And somebody else gets it first. And you're like, there goes my whole idea. Pivot very quick. Because Kristen also said that. She's like, you need to have a fail safe to your plan. You need to have a backup plan for when things hit the fan. You've got to be able to pivot and like get back in it very quickly, or you're just gonna look at the clock and there's gonna be 10 minutes left, and then you're just gonna be standing there with your food in your hands and you don't know what to do and you're panicking. Everybody else is still trucking away and they're doing their thing successfully or what looks like to be successful, and you don't know that, but you're on an island by yourself. I want to touch on one thing about this season that is really it speaks to like the character of a lot of the chefs. They're not scared to help each other a little bit. I've seen it happen on numerous occasions where somebody's stepped up and outside of a team challenge. Like this is an independent challenge, even though there are team concepts within this. And these guys, more often than not, are like lending a helping hand if they have it. And it's kind of noble because in a competition like you helping somebody just do the little things you could accidentally help them beat you. You know what I mean? Like it's just I I don't understand it, but I do see what these how these chefs are trained. It's showing a lot about their chef character that they aren't scared to be like, hey, look, I know it's a competition, but I'm not here to like beat down on the next person, or I'm not here to like just watch somebody absolutely fail, even though people have been absolutely failing in little ways or big ways. And so it's pretty interesting to see. I know like on my season, like nobody was going to jump to be like, let me bail this person out. Like it just you had to stand on your own 2 feet. But it's pretty interesting to watch.
Yeah, I talked about this in previous Top Chef podcasts where the early seasons of Top Chef were very much doing the reality show TV tropes. Like you had the
Hmm.
villain and all that stuff. And then as the seasons progressed, and I think it was, I don't know, maybe around season 10 or 11 or so, there was this
Hmm.
flip where it wasn't about the reality show tropes, but it was really about the food. And I think Top Chef as a show is better because of it.
Yes.
And everybody helping each other out. It's interesting. I had Chef Kenny Gilbert on my pod doing episodic recaps of Top Chef World All Stars, season
Hmm.
20, the first one where Buddha Low won. And one of the chefs, I forgot his name, but at Whole Foods ran out of money, and people were giving him money to finish his shopping. And Kenny Gilbert was like, "That would never have happened on my season." He was on season 7. He's like, "That
Hmm.
would have never happened." He's like, "You're out of money. Tough luck, man. This is a competition. I'm not here to make
Should have
friends.
paid
I'm here to
attention a little
win."
bit more. Yeah,
Yeah,
a little bit. It's a little bit because at the end of the day, like, yeah, you are gonna win, but you also have a lasting impression on like those people you're cooking on the side with. Like, we saw a little bit of Seeger having a moment with Brittany, and like I'm like, oh, they've become friends behind the scenes, and it's coming out in their banter a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, it's deeper. It's deeper than cooking. It real Top Chef is so much deeper than just like cooking. Like, that's the beauty of it. Like, me and my season, we're in a group chat. There's weeks where it's silent, and then there's weeks where it's just ping, 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 and it's like people are sharing moments. Like, when I had kids and I put it in the group chat, everybody was like, send the pictures, congratulations. People are winning James Beards awards, they're getting nominated, they're doing all these cool things, they're going on vacations. And it's like it's a camaraderie that we have that, like, if you go there and you not only cook well and you represent yourself well, but you also like genuinely get to know some of these other chefs, it's really cool to see. Like, and me and Tristan, we talk quite often, more often than not. Me and Vinny still call each other. Like, me and Cesar are constantly on Instagram, even though he's like new to Instagram. We send each other memes and like crack up about like Chicago stuff. And so it's just, that's to me what the win of Top Chef. Like, there's only going to be one winner, but everybody else gets a win if you guys do it right as a group. And I think we're seeing little pockets of this, and I think this group is going to like have a friendship that lasts a while.
yeah. I think everybody's competitive, and I
Yeah,
understand that, but I think deep down everybody wants to. You want to win when people are performing at their best, not when
right,
you don't want to kick somebody when they're down, kind of thing.
right. An
Um,
easy win is not a noble win. Like, it's like, well, did I really have to earn it in comparison to other seasons? Like,
Exactly, exactly. So I think people, it's very much like the Great British Bake Off. Everybody's all friendly and helping each other because they want you to succeed. And I want, if I want to beat you, I want to beat you when you're giving your all, not because you
mhm,
tripped and fell and I stepped on your head on the way to the podium. So
yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
I do like that the chefs, are like, what do you need? Especially, with Brittany and Nana, what do you need? What do you need? Let me help you. Let me jump in and helping each other out. It does show. And with the kitchen culture being stereotypically what it is, you heard about Noma, on the news
Hmm.
and all that, trying to change that image of the toxic kitchen culture. And I think Top Chef's
Hmm.
doing a really good job of casting people that aren't that,
Hmm.
and really are on there to better themselves as a chef, to learn who they are as a person, and helping each other out. So overall, I think I love this direction of Top Chef. Some people don't. Some people like the more competitive reality show type, but I'm all for showcasing the food, and I really love when they showcase the location,
Hmm.
like they're doing in the Carolinas, doing a really good job, especially today on this episode. So the most successful, talking about the quickfire finishing up there, the blue team with Seeger, Jennifer, and Justin were on the top there, and the red team with Jonathan, Anthony, and Du Yen. The winners were the blue team, Seeger, Justin, and Jennifer. So Seeger showing up for you on the quickfire win, earning some points for your draft team.
I'm in the negative.
So
I
let's
still got
look.
a long way to go here.
Yeah, yeah. You made up some ground tonight. We'll talk about that here in a minute.
Yeah.
But the elimination challenge, I really love this elimination challenge, and I thought Tristan was the perfect judge for this. So the challenge was to turn a classic Southern side dish into a main dish, and this really was highlighting Southern culture, and not just Southern culture, but the African diaspora in general. And I think
Mhm.
Tristan, I had him on my podcast in an interview, and that was his big thing, was highlighting African cuisine and Caribbean cuisine and the diaspora of those cultures through, unfortunately, the slave trade and
Mhm.
their movement throughout the world. And a lot of our dishes that we consider traditional Southern dishes, didn't originally come from the South. They came from the slave trade and the slaves making those meals, here on in America. So I just thought it was a great history lesson for those foods and their origins. And I really think it's important to know where your food comes from, and you
Mhm.
grow a greater appreciation for that. So the side dishes were cooked by another guest judge, Chef Greg Collier of Bay Haven Restaurant Group. He's a three-time James Beard nominee. So the side dishes that they could choose from were collard greens, fried okra, which were fried in full spears. I thought that was interesting. I've only had them,
Mhm.
cut up traditionally. Then we had potato salad without raisins, Charleston red rice, hoppin john, and hoe cakes, and smothered cabbage, which I haven't heard of before. So, talk about these side dishes. Any of them stand out to you? Do you have a favorite southern side dish that you like to eat?
Yeah, Johnny Cakes definitely for sure. I'm a fan of like the cornbreads, the Johnny Cakes of the world. Like I think they're just great side dishes. And then okra is a tough one. I obviously because we know Tom hates okra. I think Tom says he hates okra every season of Top Chef. Just it finds his way back into like his script, and it's a thing, but it's not a bad thing. I love okra. I personally love it in multiple different variations. You can stew it, you can fry it. People love it. If you hate it, it's because of the texture. We get that, but I love the taste of okra. It's very medicinal. It has a lot of health benefits. The Hoppin' John, I think, was probably the one that I personally have never had before. So I would have been interested in doing maybe a rice dish. But yeah, I think this showcased the Carolinas super well, the diaspora very well, all these ingredients. Chef Greg, shout out Chef Greg. He's from the South. This is like his bread and butter. And so I really like this challenge. I like what Top Chef does. Like you said, your favorite thing about Top Chef is, one thing. Mine is creating the challenges. Like I always want to see, like, all right, what is this challenge? Like, how creative are we going to go here? Like, is it super in depth, or did they miss, or is this, or is it that? And so that's what always gets me going because I start thinking about, well, what would you have cooked in this? And I would have personally gone after the Johnny Cake. Personally, I don't know. That's just maybe who I am, but yeah, I thought this was a great challenge.
Yeah, the challenge here is to turn the side dish into a main dish, and they said it in the show. To do that, you just don't make more of the side dish. You don't make
Yeah.
it bigger. What's
Mhm.
the challenge in doing this? Like, so for instance, if you would have picked the hoe cakes, the Johnny cakes as your side to turn into a main, what would have been your strategy going in?
I would have pulled the ingredients from the component of itself. Like I would have deconstructed a hoe cake and looked at the ingredients and be like, okay, what can I reconstruct this into instead of just making another hoe cake or a bigger hoe cake? Like I would have used these ingredients as a vessel to make something that is um, something creative. I would have turned it into something to go underneath, something with a protein. But you got to think like, all right, how do I successfully do this challenge? For example, like in my season, we had to turn a dessert into a savory dish in one of our challenges, and me and Tristan were on the top in that one. We were actually side by side in our competition, but we had a figgy duff, and I was like, I'm gonna take all the things that are figgy duff. It's jerk, like it's baking spices, it's flour. I'm gonna turn it into a fried chicken. So I like marinated chicken and jerk that I made, and then made a barbecue sauce out of like the raisins and with miso. And you just got to like get out the box. Like you got to just blow it up and give the judges something they've never seen before. And so I would have completely tried to deconstruct it and turn it into something else. And then I would have made the focal point of protein where you get reminiscence essence of a Johnny cake or a hoe cake or some type of cornbread. And that's kind of direction I might have gone in there.
So you just think about what are the individual ingredients that make this thing the thing, and
Mm,
then transforming it so that it is different, looks different, but when you taste it, is not different,
hmm
and just does a reimagining of that side. Yeah, that's a definitely a good. I was thinking the same thing, deconstruction. Like you just break it apart, put it back together to figure
hmm
out what that is. The smothered cabbage side dish. I want to talk about that one for a second. I have not had that before. Have you ever had smothered cabbage? It looked good,
I
and
have.
everybody seemed to love it on the show.
Mm, I do. It's there's ways to do it wrong. We saw one of the chefs had served like the whole like wedge of cabbage, and I think that that is a very difficult way of serving um, any type of side turned into an entree because you're just making it bigger, and it's not really you're not really transforming it unless you add protein to it, you add meat to it. It's also very difficult to get it to cook consistently. You buy 10 heads of cabbage and you split them all and you char them all. They have different water contents. they're going to eat differently. You need to like season some heavier. Like it's just a really hard way to like make a dish. I think that that moment had a time in cooking where everybody was like taking like a whole eggplant and serving like a whole eggplant on a plate, taking a whole like honey nut squash and serving a whole honey nut squash. I feel like it had a moment in cooking maybe like 7, 8 years ago that people are kind of like, some people are still kind of doing, but I just don't think that that's like a smart way of cooking something. I think you need to cook things a certain way so that they still have, their crunch element to them, but you can also get seasoning into them, but it's also feasible to eat. Now you're like serving a plank with like a steak knife. It's just, I don't know. I'm indifferent to it.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about the okra for just a second because everyone knows that Tom doesn't like okra, and then Tristan
And
speaks up and
Tristan.
says, "I don't like okra either." But
Hmm.
Seeger
Hmm.
steps up and goes, "You know what? I'm going to do okra." And they even gave
Hmm.
him an out. They said, "You don't have to pick okra." They didn't force okra on anybody. They said, "You can
Hmm.
pick anything else. You don't have to pick okra. Two chefs can pick the same thing." They were real flexible. They were really like, "Okay, you don't want to put yourself already on your back foot by having to cook okra for people that don't like it." But Seeger stepped up and chose it. At first, I saw it, and was like, "That's certainly a choice." I was like, "That's one way to go." I mean, when you saw Seeger step up and take the okra, being your number one pick, were you like, "Oh no"?
Bold move, Cotton. Classic. Like, all right, let's see what you can do. I also think that there's uniqueness there. It's you're having some gall about you, and you're taking a chance. Like, because like, what's the worst? They hate it. Great. That's the bottom of the bar. They hate it. But if I cook a good dish, maybe I don't win, but maybe I don't lose. That's the bar. That's a smart strategy to go with sometimes. I remember Tristan served Kristen raisins in our season. And I was like, why would you do that? She hates raisins. She said it. I hate raisins. And literally was like, I'm gonna serve her raisins. And I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna turn my raisins into something else that she's gonna not gonna know is there, but I used it. So maybe might win her over. And we both win with it. It's just I don't know. Sometimes you just get lucky. Sometimes you have a good idea. I think Seeger is kind of shaken off the cobwebs and been like, all right, like the nerves are off. Like, let's cook now. And I think that him in the quickfire going successful and then having success with his dish with okra, I think he made Tom and Tristan both kind of appreciate okra and be like, you know what, maybe I don't hate it. Maybe there was a reason why I hate it. Maybe it was trauma based. My parents stuffing okra down my face as a kid. I don't know, but I thought he put together a really good dish, and he's stepping up to the plate. It was good to also see other chefs start to enter into the competition. It can't just be Jonathan, can't just be Duyan, it can't just be Anthony. Like somebody else has got to step up. Even Oscar, like other people have got to throw their hat in the ring, or it's just it'll be like season 21 where Danny Garcia was just Danny winner, Danny winner, Danny winner. And it's like so at some point in time, somebody else has to like do this. Like you guys are here. Like, are you guys not competitive enough? Are you guys not strong enough? Like, do something. Like, make adjustments. Go if you had an idea and you were struggling, and that was your mentality coming into Top Chef, throw it in the garbage. Like, do something different. And so this season is shaping out to be pretty good in terms of like everybody's going to get their moment and they're going to have their moment to step up and shine. So I'm eager to see if Seeker can carry this momentum over, get me some more points in the next challenge.
I mean, he is coming in with a lot of momentum. He's leaving episode 4 with two big wins under his belt, basically swept the episode,
Hmm.
and carrying that over to the next day. As as you were saying before, these cooks, it feels like a week apart, but you're doing a challenge every day. So he's still fresh off of that win, riding that high going into the next day for whatever
Hmm.
challenge comes next for episode 5. So they're cooking at Fine and Fettle, one of Greg's restaurants, and they're not only cooking for the judges, but they're also cooking for 40 diners in 90 minutes. That's a tight timeline. Even for me, I was like, that's diabolical. 90 minutes. What'd you think of that time limit for the amount of people they had to cook for?
It's so once again, this is where like I'm going to give the Top Chef cast kudos. There's a way in which they do it. It's not just like, oh, put everything up. It's like it's methodical. They have a system. If you're this team's going first, this team's going second. So you'll go in the first half of the 90 minutes, this team goes to the back half of the 90 minutes, and then vice versa. While this team's serving the judges, you're serving the dining room, and vice versa. So they have their ways of doing things that make sense. It's not just the all out like free for all. It's very well thought out. You get to cook your dishes and focus on like getting your mise en place ready, but it is tight. You gotta pay attention to the clock. You gotta have your mise en place ready. and you got to go for it. And so it's 90 minutes, hour and a half, I think is a good amount of time. You can conceptualize something, you just cook in a bigger batch, and you got to go. You got to move quick.
Yeah, I want to talk about before the cook. I kind of jumped ahead, but I want to talk about that farm they went to, Deep Root CPS Farms. And another thing I love about Top Chef when I talked about one of my favorite things where they highlight the local area and really,
Hmm.
say we're in the Carolinas, we want to feature, places in Carolina, and they go to this farm, and I'm like, I'm putting that on my list. I've never heard
Hmm.
of these places, and Deep Root CPS Farms, they're getting a huge platform to
Hmm.
promote their farm, not only their farm but their philosophy of farming, which I thought was really neat, and the history lesson of the farm and being black farmers in this
Hmm.
industry, I thought was really cool. And I think Top Chef does a really good job of like putting on, tourist lists for people and bucket list things for people like Wisconsin. At first I was like, Wisconsin, that's not really a foodie town, but there they go to the largest farmers market in the country. And I'm like, okay, I want to go there now.
Hmm.
So, what did you think of the farm? I saw mushrooms growing on a log, which is pretty cool.
Hmm.
I've seen, industrial mushroom farming like in a controlled environment, but in a log outside, this is very like organic, very rustic. What did you think of the farms and the owners there?
Nature is healing. Nature heals all. Like it's getting back to the roots, getting back to the square roots of like what cooking is going back to like what's coming out of the earth. And black owned farming is not a new thing. I don't think it's a trend. I think we're getting back to our roots in seeing more black farmers because, you know, we make up so little of the national farmers, and there's an equity that is gate kept us out of getting back into farming, as we saw, like, even through slavery, we were responsible for tilling the land. And then, uh, you saw sharecropping have its moment and what that did to the economy. And we've always been invested in farming as Black and Brown people, no matter where you're at, whether there was a slave trade or not. This is like a part of who we are, and it shows a richness of the earth in that. And these Black farmers in North Carolina they're doing things sustainably, and which I love. They're some of the chefs were like, I want to use all the scraps. That's they soaked up something from that farm. It gave them a new perspective on like how to cook. And so, you know, it this season they're sticking to the Carolinas very well, and I love it for that. It's shaping out to be a good season in terms of like how they're doing this, and it's putting the Carolinas on the map.
Yeah, and being able to source your ingredients from a local vendor. I mean,
Mhm.
a lot of restaurants nowadays are just basically who could cook Cisco food the best, right? But as
Oh
a
man.
but as a chef, to be able to get those types of fresh ingredients is going to be that differentiator between you and all the other restaurants. I mean, yeah, it might cost a little bit more, but I always get discouraged when I go to like a maybe like a higher end restaurant and I see the Cisco truck parked outside. And I'm like, oh
Mhm.
man, like what are we doing?
They're probably just getting like, I mean, you would hope that those higher end restaurants are just getting commodity goods at a cheaper price, like bottled water or salts, sugars, flours, etc., versus like, let me go source my entire product guide from Cisco. Those are more for like the chain restaurants that have things locked in versus um, your small boutique restaurant is probably attached to a farm. And that's the hardest part, especially when you're in an inner city. Like imagine being in New York City and being like, we need a farm. What? Where are these farms exist? We got to go upstate to the Hudson Valley. We got to go outside of the city limits. We got to drive to Jersey. We got to find somebody who's willing to partner with us. We got to see what they're able to grow. Do they even have a greenhouse? Can they even grow in the wintertime? Like it's so many variables that like could make or break your food program if you don't do it right. And so I think like if you're gonna partner with a farm, which I think is an amazing idea, and like it's something I want to do, you need to like look at a lot of different variables and be like, all right, what direction are we gonna go in? In summertime, what are we gonna highlight? In the fall and the winter, what are we gonna highlight? Can they grow us like hybrids, specialty things? Can we give them seeds to grow for us that we're not going to see for 2 or 3 years and be okay with that? Like it takes time to like really build that out. Do they have animals? Can we get chickens from them? Can we get ducks from them? Like these are those things that I think make like good restaurants great. And if you can get it right, but you need a farm. Like everything ultimately comes from a farm, but it's like you need a farm that's attached to you. You need little things on a daily basis. Can they grow microgreens for us? Like can they grow specialty herbs for us? Can they grow little salad mixes for us? Like these things really take your food program from being like here, to like up here. And so it's tough, but it's plausible. We've seen a lot of restaurants do it successfully. Blue Hill Stone Barns is one prime example in New York City that I think everybody knows about, that kind of flipped that concept on its head and is still doing it. And so, I mean, they're built on a farm and they take you through this tasting menu throughout the farm and you're eating pieces. So it's not a far-fetched idea, but if that's the direction you're going to go in, you've got to like be all in on that. You've got to also create a two-way street. Are we going to compost back? Can we give them oyster shells to turn to sand? Can we like dream as big as possible with this farm and like go for it? And I think that that's where it can't just be like, oh, we just need stuff from this farm. Like, no, we've got to give them compost back. We've got to give them, are they doing horticulture? Are they doing making worm tea? How nerdy are these people? Like, because farmers are like eclectically scientists, like they're paying attention to like the chemistry in the soil. They're paying attention to all these variables, nitrogen and sulfur. And they're crazy, but they're like crazy smart. And so like, do they need stuff back from us? Like, and how do we make that work? How do we get 100 pounds of compost back to their farm if they don't have a truck? Are they going to give us bins? It's a lot of like scale thinking that you have to have, that you're ultimately creating like another business within a business. So it's tough. I applaud it. I love it. I want to see more of it moving forward with chefs, especially this new wave of chefs. So I'm all here for it.
Yeah. So if you're a restaurant owner listening, use local. Find places like Deep Root CPS Farms and source as much as you can locally. It's going to make you stand out in the crowded restaurant field, and it's going to give you a point of pride to be able to talk about on your menu that, hey,
Hmm.
80% or 90% of our menu items are sourced locally within 100 miles of the restaurant, or whatever the case is, if as much as
Mm.
you're able to, because Cisco is just growing and becoming a monopoly, and there's talk about them merging with Restaurant Depot, which would be
Yeah, they bought
awful.
them out. They bought them out
Yeah. Oh
already.
yeah, they already did. They already bought them out. I mean, that's
29 billion.
yeah, that's just going to drive up costs for everybody. So
It's going
find
to hurt a lot of small businesses.
yeah, it's going to hurt a lot of people. So if you're able to find local sources for things, do that. You're helping the economy. That money stays in the community. So definitely do that. So all right, before we get to the dishes, let's talk about Justin cooking in the 1970s era basketball shorts. That's certainly a fashion choice. You saw him cutting the jeans there. What are we thinking about Justin there?
Justin is not scared to be himself. Like, don't ever change Justin. You're one of one. Just be you, man. And I think he does a great job of just being him. He doesn't care. He wants to be comfortable. He's eclectically funny himself. Like, just be you, Justin. Like, don't change. Don't change for the world. Don't let it corrupt you.
I was like, and they keep picking on him with the 5 inch inseam. It's hilarious. But I was like, man, you're cutting up some jeans. You're cooking in the shorts there. That's
Just buy some, but also just buy some shorts. You don't have to cut your jeans. Just buy some shorts.
like he had to pack his suitcase, right? What are you doing?
He bought a pair of jeans and wore those for multiple times and said, I don't want to cook in these. They're too scratchy. I'm going to cut them off. So hey, man, to each his own. That's his. Me, I'm not a fan of like the shorts in the kitchen, like spilling stuff, hot grease on your leg. I'm okay, but that's him.
I
That's
mean,
him, man.
it's hot in the kitchen, right? You got to be comfortable. Got to be, Justin,
Yeah,
do you, man?
I'm bald. Like I sweat, so like I don't have any hair to stuck mine out. So I have to like in those moments, I got to put something on my head, hat, bandana, where you're just like looking crazy. I get it.
So
I get it.
that's funny. So let's talk about the dishes. Which of
Mm.
these which chefs and side dishes do you think were successful in transforming their side into a main? Who stood out to you here?
Obviously, Lawrence with the Hoppin Huang. I thought him and Oscar were hilarious with the Hoppin Juan and Hoppin Huang. I thought the Chinese clay pot idea was great. And then you also heard Kristen ask some questions like, how did you ensure that everybody got the crispy rice and not just the rice on the top? And him just like thinking like steps ahead on like how to conceptualize this plate, curing the egg yolk, using shiitake mushrooms, butter beans. Like he stuck to the challenge super well. I also thought Justin's plating of his dish was really well. Like he plated potato salad in a potato. It looks really nice, but Sherry definitely took the cake home with that, with her smoked fish, the potato chip. She had like a potato sauce, marble potatoes. Like I think she leaned harder into the ingredient in the challenge. And that to me, if you can give me five, six, components, which sounds a little crazy sometimes, but if you can nail all of them, I think you have a standout dish. Obviously, Anthony being on the bottom, I definitely want to get to because he had a great dish and conceptually, trying to attack it, but he used, 2 types of pork on his plate, and they said it was really salty, and he was surprised, and, I think Tristan nailed it on the head. He said, "I think they're tasting it 100 times so they get tone deaf," and, my wife asked me that too. She was like, "How do they not know it's salty? Are they not tasting their food?" I'm like, "Oh, they're definitely tasting their food," but after 5, 6 times, and you're continuously reducing, and then you taste it again, and it's reducing further with your pot liquor, and you're tasting it again, eventually you're like, it's building more complexity, but, like, you're losing also your palate, like, you're crashing your palate, and you gotta reset too. But, yeah, Seeger with his braised pork belly, leaving the skin on. I thought that was a very bold choice, just because skin on pork belly also mimics like slimy okra a little bit. Like, it has a texture to it that, like, if Tristan's like, "Oh, I hate okra because of the texture, not the taste," leaving that on, I was like, "Oh man, I don't know," but it looked really nice. It was like braised and cooked through, and it had like this like gelatinous look to it. Seeger just nailed his dish. So I think between Lawrence, Seeger, and Oscar, they all just nailed their dishes pretty well. They conceptually stuck to it. They scaled it into a main dish and just did it really well. And then also Rhoda had a really nice dish with like her curry fried rice and her fried egg. So I think just a couple competitors are just like sticking to the theme, and they're like paying attention more to the challenges.
Yeah, I think overall, especially after last week, I think overall the chefs did really well with this challenge. I think this is a concept that they could kind of get more behind, and it wasn't as cerebral, I think, as the
Mhm.
color challenge. But yeah, outside of the ones that were at the top, I think Oscar and Lawrence clearly had fun with this
Mhm.
challenge. Hoppin Huang and Hopping Huan, hilarious,
Mhm.
and clearly they had fun. And when you have fun in the kitchen, it shows in the food, and it shows in the presentation. And yeah, Lawrence's crispy rice. I love crispy rice. I love a good hot
Mhm.
pot type of rice, and I would have loved to have eaten that one. I thought Jonathan had a really good looking dish. I don't think he transformed it into a main necessarily. It was just
Correct.
chicken and hoe cakes, but man, it looked good. I mean,
Mhm.
that one I wanted to eat. And the judge that said this is a good hangover food was clearly right. I mean, that is definitely something you eat after a Saturday night out. That's what you have for brunch on Sunday morning to clean all that out. But it looked good. I just don't think it was a main, and I think that's what caused him from being on the top. He was fine in the middle. I think he was definitely a safe dish, but that's the
Mhm.
dish that I thought I want to try that that one because
Yeah,
it
for
looked
sure.
it looked good. Just didn't transform the hoe cake enough into a main dish. Um, Okra, yeah, Seeger killed it with his okra dish. Obviously, it made Tristan and Tom go, you know what? I think I like okra. Maybe I just haven't had it cooked for me correctly.
Mhm.
And with the skin on the pork, again, was a bold choice, like you said before. I thought Rhoda doing the red curry and rice was a bold transformation of red
Mhm.
rice. I like where they said you put your spin and your culture on that, which I think
Mhm.
the judges look for in these types of challenges is what part of yourself are you injecting into these challenges, and they want to learn more about you as these challenges move on. But yeah, kind of talk about some of the ones that were on the opposite end of that. I think Brittany, unfortunately, let's talk about her for just a second. Had a moment like Day where the steam oven just wasn't on, and you just again you don't know the equipment, and you can't pivot. And I think pivoting, we talked about that earlier, the theme of this challenge and the theme of this episode, I think, was really pivoting. We talked about the mochi and the quickfire, couldn't pivot from that. And then she couldn't pivot from here, just ran out of time. And I think what Kristen said, exactly what you were talking about, is you got to be able to come up with recipes that you can change on the fly, and that you can't be too committed to one thing and not be able to shift. You kind of had that moment in your episode where you went to the store and they didn't have salt cod, but you didn't pivot to something else. You just salted cod. So do you kind of understand like where Brittany was coming from? Like you kind of have this tunnel vision a little bit of what you want to do, and then when it doesn't happen, it derails.
Mhm. Yeah, sometimes because you've already written an idea, you've already got a plan, and then also when you're at the store, you're locked into a time. The clock is still running there, so it's a lot of constraints. You've got to be able to figure it out. The fact that she didn't check, like, you waited till the last minute to check and see if your pork was going in the steamer, and it wasn't. Um, And also like she ground her pork and then tried to call it sausage, and it's like that just didn't get it there. It wasn't cased. She didn't whip it into like a cotechino. She didn't transform it into an actual sausage. It was just ground pork. And so a lot to unpack about how she approached her dish. I think she had an idea and then it just was never going to get there. Even if she would have, let's say her steamer did work. Let's say in a perfect world it did work. Which would we have still called that sausage? No, it wasn't. It was just ground meat. It may have had flavors of sausage, depending on how she seasoned it, but I think conceptually you've got to be able to like make a dish make sense, and you don't have casings. I don't think that idea was ever going to work for her. I think she thought about the end product. She said, here's the challenge, and this is what I want to do. And then everything in between wasn't feasible. And the equipment broke down. And once the equipment broke down, then her dish broke down. Then the sausage wasn't right. Then she had to cook that differently. And then somebody else had to give her mise en place. It just everything in the in between was never going to make her a complete dish to win. And I think that that's where you've got to come up with the dish very fast. You've got to go to the store or shop. You've got to execute it. Something doesn't go right. You still have an out. And that's where I think she wasn't thinking the middle. This is where you've got to go and execute right here. You do your store work first. The judges are going to do what they do when that time clock goes off. But this is you. And she wasn't fully here. And I think that that's why she struggled most in this challenge specifically.
Yeah, and like you said, had she finished it, had the steam oven worked, I think texturally it all would have been one texture. I didn't see her
Yeah.
preparing anything for textural contrast. So it would have just been soft on soft with a
Hmm.
sauce. And I don't know even then if it would have won. But with steam ovens, I mean, assuming it was preheated or whatever, I've never worked with a steam oven before. When you open the thing up to put something in, you would have felt the heat coming out of there, right? Like,
You see
shouldn't
the steam come out. The
you
steam comes
see the
out.
steam coming out? Like when she first opened it up and nothing was coming out, no heat. I mean, I get it. You're moving fast. You don't have time to think. You just open it and you throw it in there and hope for the best. But would that not have given you a little bit of a pause and be like, why isn't this oven hot?
Yeah, red flags just start going off in your head. At that point, I'm like, culinary. Like I'm calling the culinary department and being like, this is broken. Like I already wrote my menu. Like this is not it. You guys, this is not it. I can't do my dish. And then from there, troubleshoot, because maybe she wouldn't have got eliminated. Maybe the great thing about Top Chef is sometimes you mess up and you're not the worst mess up. You're not the worst. So like figure it out. And I think she just kept digging herself in the hole. She admitted her wrongs. She didn't like the first thing I would have said is like the steaming oven didn't work. And then that would have been like, okay, she wrote her menu, she was guaranteed XYZ. Maybe that might have got her out. I was battling the ovens, couldn't get out of it, and I had to pivot. This is what I pivoted to. I'm sticking to my guns. This is a good dish. Just make the judges kill you. Let them kill you. Don't kill yourself. Let them do the talking. And I think that that's where a lot of competitors in Top Chef are a little bit too truthful in their forthcoming. Say less, just talk less, or tell the truth, and then just leave die on that sword. I had to do it in my season. I was like, look, this is what it was, man. Couldn't get salt cod. Like it sucked. Like that was the feature ingredient, and I couldn't get it. And so to use something else that was not good quality is what ultimately, I don't think it was the dish that got me eliminated. I think it was the quality of ingredients that we got that like set us up for failure. You know what I mean? Like there was only so much we could do. We were never going to bounce back. But also in that, when we went back and watched it on camera, me and Kat kept being like, I wish we would have got salt cod. Wish we would have got salt cod. Wish we would have got salt cod. After like Tom hearing that multiple times, he's like, stop saying that, Johnny. Stop it. I don't like that. You know what I mean? And so like it's just say less, like talk less. Hey, we had to pivot. This is what we did. We're going with it. We're sticking to our guns because we executed a dish very well. Me and Kat executed that dish. All of our components were fire. Like all the other, that was the one challenge that it took me by surprise when I got eliminated. But I wasn't. But I wasn't. I was surprised because that was the first time that we had all shared food. Everybody shared food that day. And everybody's just like, that is tasty. That was delicious. Was it structurally a perfect fritter? No, that was apparent. But they were like, that bite of food in totality with the caviar marinated and the saffron aioli and the fritter and like it just they were like that was delicious. Schwai literally was like yours was my favorite. And on the contrary, I tasted Schwai's dish, and I was like, oh, that's the one to beat. And he wasn't in the top three. But at the end of the day, I'm not the judge. You know what I mean? So like that's where like the technicalities, that's where they're like, oh, everybody executed something well. Who executed with like a degree of separation? And that's where like sometimes you have those challenges where everybody does well and somebody's still going home. And that just happened to be the challenge we were in. So I get it. It sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, beyond the ability to cook, I think the ability to pivot is like number two in your skill set as a chef
Mm-hmm.
on Top Chef. That you have to be able to pivot well,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to think of things. If this doesn't work, what's my plan B? And being able to think in that way constantly. And Brittany unfortunately wasn't able to do that. Also on the bottom with Brittany was Jennifer, because she decided to try a technique that she's never done before. That's like rule number two in Top Chef. Don't do anything for the first time on Top Chef.
Mm-hmm.
And she used a different type of flour, and she's never done that before. So the whole cake came out not the way it was supposed to, and that landed her on the bottom. And then we talked about Anthony being too salty, which Tristan brought up a good point. If you're the only one tasting it, that's why I like when the chefs taste each other's food. I think you have to do that, right? Because of that thing that you said is like once you taste your own food, you become blind to it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it either all tastes the same or it tastes better, but your tongue has had so much salt on it by then it's numb to that. So
Mm-hmm.
Anthony, I think next time he's going to start having people taste his food. We'll see how that goes. But Brittany was eliminated on this episode, and she's been on the bottom every episode, and you can't live at the bottom for very long. That you can't be on the bottom that many times before it gets into your head, and before you realize, I'm in over my head. I can't figure out my way out, and she basically said it herself. And they had a lot of praise for her career, but Top Chef just wasn't for her, and unfortunately she got eliminated there. At the top, we had Sherry. We talked about Sherry a little bit. I loved how she used every piece of the potato and really made potato the star of her dish. And that's what you
Mm-hmm.
do with the main. Lawrence with his crispy rice dish was on the top. But Seeger, your number one pick, he wins. And it's the first episode sweep of the season. So he racked up some points for you. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Seeger picking okra against probably common sense, but was able to turn it into a dish that Tristan and Tom enjoyed. And because of that, he stood out.
Mm-hmm.
And was the only one that cooked okra, and because of that, it made a difference. And he made it in a way that Tom and Tristan didn't hate, and the rest of the dish was tasty, and he won. And being different and being that differentiator in Top Chef is what gets you wins. So with Brittany and Nana both out, we are in our first episode of Last Chance Kitchen. A quick 13-minute episode there on YouTube and also on Peacock. And Tom breaks the news that only one chef is coming back. In previous seasons, it was two chefs, like one came back in the middle and then one came back towards the end. But this time, we're going classic Last Chance Kitchen, where only one chef makes it back. What did you think about that rule change?
They're changing everything about it. This is like March Madness tournament. It's madness. They broke FCK. I don't know how this is gonna work. Like how many weeks, how much longevity, like at what point is LCK cut off? But also if you're first in, you have it the hardest. If you're
Yeah.
last out, you kind of have it like I just gotta go back in and just beat that one person one day. It that's tough. I don't know. I think Nana going into LCK, Brittany going into LCK, if they're going to win out, they've got to beat a lot of people. And instead of having two rounds of a tournament and one person gets to come back in and then a second person gets to come back in, you have like it's a longer tournament. So if I'm up first and I make one little mistake, I'm out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with Last Chance Kitchen, how that works, eliminated chefs go into Last Chance Kitchen, and it's a King of the Hill format. Winner stays, loser goes home, and then they just keep going. So just what you were saying, if you're the last one out, last one eliminated on Top Chef, you have the advantage of only having to cook one, maybe two times to make it back into the competition. But Nana has a long road ahead of her.
Hmm.
Through this Last Chance Kitchen. So it's Nana versus Brittany. They come in. Tom's cooking a meal, and he made a braised red snapper with rosemary, lemon vinaigrette, and eggplant. And he tells the story of going back to basics and putting himself in his food. And that's the challenge. Make a plate of food. Just make a good plate of food. Put yourself on a plate. You got 30 minutes. And Tom said to do well in Top Chef, you have to find yourself and do your thing. And I think that's the commonality with all the winners of Top Chef is they figured out who they were in the competition. and then leaned into it like Tristan did in your season, leaned into what he did as a chef with highlighting African cuisine and putting it on the map and exposing people to food that they've never had before and being that differentiator. And Buddha just being the technical genius that he is and just out techniquing everybody on his episodes or on his 2 seasons. That's who he is as a chef, highly technical, highly advanced. So every winner had that kind of finding themselves moment during the season. So the dishes, Nana made a pan-seared salmon with a tomato salad and curry sauce. Tom said the salmon was nicely cooked and liked that cheese tomato 2 different ways. It was on the verge of being too salty, but not quite there yet. And Brittany did a pan-seared halibut with grilled corn and tomato panzanella. The halibut was cooked nice. The corn salad was refreshing and a nice lemon flavor. He said he would have liked the panzanella to soak up some of that sauce as opposed to being a crouton. So both dishes were look really good. And Tom even said himself, if you were cooking like this, you probably on the main competition, you probably wouldn't have been kicked out. So being a Last Chance Kitchen participant yourself, you said it was a pretty quick turnaround between when you were eliminated and when you were on Last Chance Kitchen. But with this one, they had to wait because the first two eliminated didn't get on Last Chance Kitchen. It was just Nana and Brittany. So they had to
Hmm.
wait at least 4 days before they
Hmm.
were cooking again. So they had a lot of time to figure things out. What did you think of these dishes? They both had control of the clock. None of them were scrambling at the end of the. Then both of them put out some pretty good dishes for this.
Yeah, I think without the crazy challenges and the noise of all the things going on around you with the other people and time constraints and new kitchens, um, it's a little bit more controlled. I think both of them were able to take a deep breath, being after being eliminated from the main competition and say, you know what, this is what I'm going to make, and we're going to go for it here. And it's LCK is different. Like it's you're in the Top Chef kitchen. It's you know what's there, you know what's in the pantry, you know where the ovens are, you know what works, what doesn't work, and so it's just easy for you to just it's quiet. It's just you, couple plates, couple proteins, and you go. I thought Nana, she's going to continue sticking to who she is as a chef that cooks diasporic food, and she wanted to represent that. And Tom saying like, cook something that's unapologetically you. Uh, Definitely puts you in a point where you can cook something that is nostalgically you. She was like, I immediately thought of my mom. I wanted to like go back and like, this is me cooking with my mom right here. I want to use tomatoes. I want to make something spicy. And I think that ultimately is what's going to get her success. And if she's going to cook out LCK, she's got to nail her dishes every time. She's got to beat the clock. I think the challenges are going to get progressively harder, so that's going to throw some monkey wrenches in there, and then we'll see how she does. But Nana got the win. I'm glad. I knew she could do it. She knew she could do it. She bigged up herself, and I'm eager to see who she takes out next.
Yeah, Nana gets the win. Brittany is eliminated. So she's going to be in the peanut gallery with other eliminated chefs. I do like that part
Mm-hmm.
about Last Chance Kitchen. It seems pretty much like they're cooking with their hair down a little bit, and there's
Mm-hmm.
some banter going on back and forth. So that'll be fun to see. But yeah, Nana moves on. So she's still scoring points for you in Last Chance Kitchen. But yeah, both dishes look really good. Tom had a hard time picking. Basically, Brittany went home on a panzanella,
Mm-hmm.
and that was it. So we were talking about degrees of separation, like you were saying. Just that little thing about not letting the panzanella soak up some of that sauce was the difference maker between the two. So yeah, good LCK. I do like Nana's. Hopefully, she finds herself in through the gauntlet of LCK, and she's one step closer to being back on the competition. So
Yep.
let's talk about the points. You did really well on because of Seeger. Seeger, when we talk about the points, Seeger had a sweep. He won the Quickfire challenge based on the team that he was on, and he won the Elimination challenge. So based on that, he gets some bonus points. So he got the Elimination challenge win for 7 points, got the Quickfire win for 5 points, and because he swept, he got a bonus 3 points. So the man scored some points for you. Up until this episode, you were I was blowing you away.
Yeah.
But you made up a lot
So
of
not cool.
ground. And based on the way the competition landed with who's on the top, who's on the bottom on both the elimination and the quickfire challenges, you scored yourself 30 points on yesterday's episode. And I scored only four. So after 4 weeks, we are in a ball game, folks. It is 40-30. I'm in the lead by 10. We're still early in this competition, so it's anybody's game. At first, I thought I was going to run away with this thing, but it looks like we may have a game here. It looks like a Duke UConn situation. See what happens, and
Well,
and
it's
see what
like what
happens
Rhoda
here at the
said.
end.
can't peak too early. You were getting too confident. You didn't shave today. You're like, you know what, I got them. I'm gonna take them away. I didn't either, so it's okay. Uh, but I think this is good. I'm glad to see some of these other chefs like finding themselves, because you going on Top Chef, you want to, like, you're showing the world what you can do, and at some point you either don't or you do, and it's good that other chefs are throwing their hat in the ring. So, and I'm glad I'm back in it. I'm glad those other chefs that were struggling, that were causing negative points, are kind of finding themselves. Let's keep this momentum going. I want to see who steps up next in episode 5. I want to see a different winner. I want to see Oscar get a win. I want to see Brittany get, or not Brittany. I want to see Jonathan get a win. I want to see somebody new. Like, give me somebody new. Like, somebody new has to step up, or they're just gonna exist in the middle or exist at the bottom.
Yeah, Seeger kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, he was kind of in the middle on the bottom for the first 3 episodes, and then in episode 4, he just kind of blew up. And everybody's like, okay, Seeger's here. Seeger's means business. So I look forward to seeing what he does in the next episode, carrying on this momentum to episode 5. He's not on my team, but I still look forward to seeing what he's going to do. So we did it. We covered episode 4. We got episode 5 coming up next week, talking about dehydrated food, which should be interesting. Not for sure where that's going to go, but I saw the sneak peek, so that looks interesting there. So to end things off, where can people find you, Corwin, online, on socials? What's going on at the restaurant that people need to know about? Any specials going on?
Follow me on Instagram at Chef Corwin Hemming. All things spring, coming into summertime. It's getting warm. I cannot wait for this warm weather. I'm over it. I'm over cold. It's about to rain a lot probably. But yeah, man, it's just here in DC, things getting better. Cannot wait to can you continue cooking. If you're in DC and you want somewhere adventurous to come eat, join us at Isla Restaurant. Would love to host you guys.
All right. Don't forget to follow me on socials at Rich Herrera and at Eat Your Content. And make sure to like, follow, and subscribe on your podcast player of choice so you know when new episodes drop. Chef Corwin, we knocked out another week. New episode comes out on Monday, and then we'll do our recap, and we'll get that up as soon as possible. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Yes, always, Rich.